Today, we're digging into one of the most spectacular and, frankly, catastrophic implosions in crypto history, the story of Terra and Luna. We're going to find out how a $40 billion ecosystem could just vanish in about a week, dragging down the entire crypto market with it. So let's just cut right to the chase with a simple question. Imagine this pitch. Someone offers you a digital dollar. It's supposed to always be worth $1, but it's not backed by cash in a bank. Instead, it's held steady by a clever algorithm. And here's the kicker. If you park your money there, you earn a staggering 20% interest a year. So, would you buy it? Does that sound too good to be true? Well, millions of people heard that pitch and thought it was the deal of a lifetime. They poured in their savings, they believed in the tech, and then, in the blink of an eye, it was all gone. This is the story of how that promise was made and how brutally it was broken. So how on earth did this actually happen? Well, it all started with an offer that was, for so many people, just impossible to ignore. It was this perfect combination of supposed safety and unbelievable returns. The engine behind this whole promise was a platform called Anchor Protocol. It was simple. You deposit Terra's stablecoin, UST, and you get paid almost 20% APY. I mean, think about that. Your normal bank account is lucky to give you 0.5%. This thing was like a financial black hole, sucking in over $14 billion from investors all over the world. But here is the multi-billion-dollar question. Where was that 20% coming from? And the answer is, it wasn't real. It was a trap. This wasn't a yield generated from smart investments or lending, nope. It was completely artificial, paid for out of Terra's own pockets just to create this insane demand for their stablecoin. It worked so well that at one point, over 75% of all UST in existence was just sitting in Anchor, chasing that yield. The whole system was a ticking time bomb. All right, let's peel back the curtain a little bit and look at the technical magic that was supposed to make this all work. How could you possibly have a stablecoin that's worth $1 without any actual dollars backing it up? The whole thing depended on this delicate dance between two tokens. First, you had UST. That was the stablecoin, and its one and only job was to stay pegged to $1. Then you had its sister token, Luna. Luna was designed to be the wild one, the volatile one. Its job was to basically be a shock absorber, taking all the price hits to keep UST perfectly stable. So how did this dance actually work? Well, there was a simple rule. You could always trade $1 worth of Luna for one UST token, and vice versa. So if UST's price went up to, say, $1.01, traders could burn Luna to create new UST at the $1 price and sell it for a quick, risk-free profit. That selling pressure would push the price back down. If UST fell to 99 cents, they'd do the opposite. On paper, it was really elegant, but the whole system balanced on a single point of failure. Everybody had to believe it would work. And belief, or maybe overbelief, was something the architect of this system had way too much of. You really can't understand this collapse without understanding the personality of its founder, Do Kwon. You know, nothing really captures the essence of Do Kwon better than his own words. This tweet right here was his go-to response for pretty much anyone who dared to question his creation. He wasn't just building a project, he was building a cult of personality around himself, and he'd brush off any and all criticism with insults. This went way beyond confidence. This was pure, uncut hubris. And it's not like people didn't see the risks. There were plenty of specific warnings. One analyst wrote this incredibly detailed breakdown of how an attacker could trigger a death spiral. Do Kwon's public reply, he called it one of the most retarded things he'd ever read. Just 6 months later, that exact scenario played out almost to a T. The man's arrogance was just off the charts. In March of 2022, that's just 2 months before his entire empire crumbled to dust, he publicly threatened a rival stablecoin, DAI, tweeting, "By my hand, DAI will die." You can't make this stuff up. The irony is just crushing. UST is dead and gone, and DAI is still ticking along just fine. So what do you get when you mix a fragile financial machine with a founder who refuses to see any flaws? You get the perfect storm for one of the fastest, most brutal financial collapses we've ever seen, the 7-day death spiral. The whole thing came apart in just 5 steps over a single, horrifying week in May 2022. It started with a trigger, some really big coordinated sales that knocked UST just slightly off its $1 price. That little dip was enough to spark a panic. Everyone rushed for the exits at Anchor Protocol. Then the algorithm went into overdrive, printing trillions of new Luna to try and prop up the price of UST. But that just crashed Luna's value, which destroyed any remaining confidence, and the whole thing spiraled out of control. These charts right here, they show you what that death spiral looks like on a graph. It's a cliff. Luna went from a peak of over $116 to nothing. And below it, the stablecoin, UST, which was never supposed to move, collapsed from its $1 peg all the way down to a few cents. It was a complete and total wipeout. To really get your head around how Luna's price just went to zero, you have to look at this number. In its final, desperate moments, the algorithm went berserk trying to save UST. It minted so much new Luna that the total supply exploded from around 350 million tokens to over 6.9 trillion in a few days. That is hyperinflation on a scale that is just almost impossible to imagine. Now, a $40 billion project doesn't just die quietly. Its collapse was like an earthquake, and the tsunami it created washed over the entire crypto world. Yeah, Terra/Luna was the first domino. Its failure directly caused a massive hedge fund called Three Arrows Capital to go belly up. Their bankruptcy then took down crypto lenders like Voyager and Celsius, freezing billions of dollars of regular people's money. This chain reaction is what kicked off the brutal crypto winter of 2022. And what about the man who started it all? Well, after the collapse, Do Kwon went on the run and became an international fugitive. Interpol put out a red notice for his arrest, and he was finally caught in Montana trying to fly on a fake passport. His journey from crypto kingpin to wanted man ended with an extradition to the US. Let's just sit with the final numbers for a second, because the scale of this is just mind-blowing. About $42 billion of value just erased. Luna went from almost $120 to fractions of a penny. And for Do Kwon, the final cost was 15 years in federal prison for what prosecutors ultimately called an epic generational fraud. So what's the big takeaway from all this? I think it's summed up perfectly by Mike Novogratz. He's a billionaire investor who was so all in on Luna that he actually got a tattoo of it on his arm. His words here are the perfect epitaph for this whole saga. The story of Terra and Luna is a brutal $40 billion lesson on hubris, and a permanent reminder that no matter how smart you think you are, gravity always, always wins.